This is IBM Museum. In a previous video, I brought out one of my IBM PS2 P75 units. It's a suitcase system that's based on the 46 DX33 CPU. And I talked about going through and making sure the inside of the unit was clean and looked good before I went through and powered it up. I did link a page that talked about checking the capacitors inside, but I didn't feature that in the video. I just linked that in the video description. This is another P75. I mean, I do have 3 of these, and this system, I had it stored in a state of disassembly. I had the video board separately, and so I thought that this would be the one that I would put on the bench as I went through and checked it out further. Now the page of information is here, and I will link this in the video description. It talks about the failing capacitors. Here's the main board of the P75, and it lists the locations. And the display, I'm going through and trying to get where I can interact with the page. And it talks about the values of those capacitors in different locations. And then it also has the display board. And that's for that orange plasma display. And it has an external VGA style connection for an external display that you can operate. It's one or the other. You operate the internal display or externally. And it's actually an XGA video board that's on the P75. And it has those capacitors that it shows there in this diagram as well. And since my display board was separate, was pulled out of the unit, I had thought that that'd be the one that I just want to look over first. And certainly I can look at the main board as well. I do have my kind of the SkyCam view again, and I'll get turned around here. Let me get off the internal webcam, and I do have for this SkyCam. I just kind of had to see how it'll present itself. I do have this USB microscope that's real handy to look at things, but this would probably be me playing around with a lot of the focus of this and going through in the different positions. I just plug it into my Chromebook, and it's a nice way to go through and kind of look over the board myself. But I've got the camcorder set up where I can go through and zoom in as well. And let me look at, I might go through and see if I can get that SkyCam in a good view overhead and just get it off in one corner with the camcorder going otherwise. So I'm going to pause the video. I've just got that SkyCam off in the corner there so we can kind of see as I go through and bump it. And I'll go through for the camcorder, and I can zoom in, and the display board, this is allowed. I've got the bus adapter pulled out right now, and of course the main board being here, it has the CPU card up here in the upper left hand corner, and then the display board sits in a microchannel slot just up here. And as I say, on this system, one of the three systems, it did have where the display board was out on it, pulled out. So obviously I probably had some problems with this board at some point, or I was going through and planning to go through and to fix it. I just want to make sure that how things are displayed here. And so for this display board, on that page, they were showing, one of the capacitors is over here, and that is actually where the, that position's vacant on this one. It looks like that if there's a capacitor there, it's fallen off or been removed. And so I'll have to go through and attend to that. At least I have the value of what that is to put that back in place. And going through, the other capacitors there, and the camcorder should show a pretty good view of these. On the USB microscope, I was actually getting a real close-in view and even seeing some corrosion and things like that. It doesn't necessarily talk about these capacitors leaking, just going bad, although the thought is that they, in a lot of instances, that's the way that they go bad, is they lose the fluid, the electrolytic fluid out of them. And the kind of just scanning over the board, I mean, it's obviously dirty in some areas. I'll have to go through and clean it. Now I went through, and one of the areas I looked at was this capacitor, and as you can see, this thing is even got to where it's not soldered in place. Looks like someone has worked with that, and I don't think that this is the original capacitor there. And then the stuff that's close by just looks absolutely horrible, and that could be from capacitor leaking or something like that, that big capacitor. But you see even the smaller surface mount capacitor there being just having that looking real ugly. I mean, the solder is not even very visible on that. And I had to make sure as I hold the board, I see in the recording where it's kind of jerky on the screen, but I'll have to go through and review the video just to make sure. There's corrosion that's very visible there on the pads of the surface mount resistors and things like that, and on some of the vias that go through the printed circuit board. Now take a look at the legs of this chip too. I mean, they're nice and clean in some areas, in particular on the top and on that side, and they all look good except this one quadrant here. Those just look in just horrible shape, and I don't know if I can work with this board to get it back functional. At least I do have the two other boards I'll have to check over and see how they look compared to this, and I've got those as known good. But this is going to be a real project to get going back because of this heavy damage that this it's got. And the regular main board of the system does look, we'll put the display board kind of back in its position. The board otherwise, it does look pretty good for when I went through and just kind of briefly scanned it over, but I'll have to look at those capacitors and other areas just to make sure that those are doing good. It just looks like the main aspect of that is that display board. And who knows, I might be reduced to just having 2 of those units. I've just got to get a little bit further and see what I can discover on them. But I thought it'd be just kind of a good thing that we could look over that board, and just the damage that is very visible there is a little bit disappointing. But I'm gonna go through and work with it and see if I can get it to function correctly over time, and these systems will go through. And of course, I'm going to run the system information tool at some point on the P75, even though it's not a supported system from that list of the system information tool of what it supports. But we'll see what that can reveal being run on a P75. So if you enjoyed this content, click on that like button, and by all means subscribe to my channel. If you have not already, invite your friends that are interested in this sort of content to subscribe to my channel as well, so I can keep growing in subscribers and keep this good video content coming out. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.